Okay, high school history students, I promised you a story about the COVID-19 and the flu of 1918. Personal story. Okay, in 1918, my father was 2 years old. He lived in Elk Point, South Dakota with his mother, father, and two older sisters. His father was very Irish and loved to dance. In South Dakota, there were often Saturday night community dances. And on any given Saturday, you'd probably find my grandparents heading for the dance, heading for the community dance hall. On one particular Saturday evening, my grandfather's, whose name was Frank, didn't feel well, so they didn't go dancing. He instead went to bed, and he never got up. He died within 24 hours of the Spanish flu. How did this affect the family? It left my grandmother, a widow, with 3 young children. The oldest was 7. She had no money and no formal education or labor skills. She didn't even have enough money to put a headstone on her husband's grave. To add insult, my grandfather was Catholic. Grandma was not, and because he married out of his faith, he couldn't be buried in the Catholic cemetery, but in a small public one. A wooden board was placed on his grave to mark the space. Grandma and the 3 kids moved back with her parents, which was all the way across the state of South Dakota. Grandma got work cleaning houses, cleaning the courthouse, and cooking and waitressing in the small town cafe. Grandma was an excellent cook. None of those jobs paid a very good living wage, so they were still dependent upon the family for help. And the family were poor farmers, but they did all they could to help out. My dad quit school after the 8th grade so he could help support the family. He was an intelligent man, but had few opportunities at the time to advance any education. Years later, my mom and dad married, and shortly after that, my grandmother remarried. Her second husband was the one I called Grandpa. After all the years, and as a matter of fact, 34 years, my grandfather's grave was still unmarked, except for that wooden board. I went to Elk Point about 20 years ago, determined to find my grandfather's grave. I learned that a group of well-meaning citizens had cleaned the public cemetery to make it more presentable for World War II soldiers who had been killed and their families. In their cleanup process, they had removed all the debris and rotting pieces of wood. One of those pieces of wood was the board marking my grandfather's grave. No member of the family has ever been able to locate it. It remains unfound and unmarked to this day. That's just one of the millions of stories that could be told regarding the Spanish flu epidemic. Did it affect my life? Yes. I don't know how my life would have been different, but that one death created a whole different course for the whole family. And there were millions of families who had their courses changed during that time. I'm asking you to write an essay comparing COVID-19 pandemic with the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. How was it treated? How did people recover from it? How many losses were there and in each case? Was the fear as great with the Spanish flu as it is with the COVID-19? Did people wear masks? Did the schools close down? Did the government close down? Were businesses closed down? All of those things. Compare the two pandemics, because this is the second one in the history of the United States. There have been epidemics localized in an area of the United States, but pandemic is worldwide, and it's the United States wide. At this point, we have only about 6 states that are not under a shutdown notice, a wear masks and stay inside, sheltering at home. How was the government response different, or was it different? So all those things you need to take into consideration, and any personal stories you have about what you've gone through in COVID-19. How does it make you feel? What are your impressions when you get up in a day? What do you do in a week's worth of time? Are you just staying at home doing computer games and schoolwork? Are you socializing with friends? How are you communicating with friends? How is life different in this situation than it was before March 17th, when we all closed down and said our goodbyes for the rest of the school year? I'm just giving you examples here. Some of you have already turned something in. I haven't read them. I have printed them. I will get them read. I have a few papers left to grade here, but not a whole lot. So get caught up if you can. It's getting close to the end of this school year, and it does affect you. This is a high school grade. Okay, that's all for now.